Okay, we are here finally after let's see, a couple reschedules and some technical difficulties. I'm very excited to say we are live with episode 70 of the Adventures in Adversity podcast. Now, if you have been to this podcast before through Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, you know that we talk about real people who tell real stories about how they overcame adversity in their life. Today, that is no different. I am very, very grateful to welcome um, a new friend of mine, I think, after all of our chatting, Roseanne Mayer, author of Bones Beneath the Prairie, a memoir of survival and redemption. So, Roseanne, thank
Hi,
you so much for being here.
thank you for having me.
Of course. So let's see, let's bring the audience up to speed on how did we meet? And then we're going to dive right into your story. And that's when I'm going to be quiet, which is my listener's favorite part when I stop talking.
I wrote the book, and
Yep.
it was suggested to me that I should try to find some podcasts that would, because it was the month of the domestic violence month,
Yep.
and I came across yours and another one, and I came across several, but
Yeah.
yours, from the first moment I saw you, I knew that that was one for me. Our hearts were aligned, and I knew that you had experience with it, but that the podcast was real. What I heard from you was real and raw and not staged or performed. And for
Mhm.
me, I'm from Texas, and this
Yep.
was a story that I never intended to write. And so I thought, oh, I have to connect with her. And then I thought, oh, I'm being a stalker.
You know what? I love, dare I say, I love stalkers of inspirational. I love
Sweet.
inspirational stalkers that are want to be on the podcast or get something from it. I love those connections.
I, I've been I've been a spiritual being and had God in my life for so long that I know when there's one of those. There was a brief period for about 20 years that I sort of said, "See you later, God." And but this when I saw your podcast, I knew that he had something for me, and that he had something for you as well. And so in the first podcast that I saw was you and Sylvie, but it was the first
Yes.
one. It was the first one, not the most.
Yep.
And
Episode 41.
I was like, oh, whoa, okay. And then I heard Sam's, and that was like scientific
Yeah.
and a little
Episode
little
29.
yeah, episode 29. And it was inspiring, but it also went into deep trenches. My story's a little bit different. But anyway, I'm glad to be here, and I'm so tickled that we connected and that you asked me.
Well, thank you for listening to the podcast. I always say whenever anyone says they listen to an episode, it never gets old. I'm like, oh, wow. Like, cause I know the story so intimately after, and I'm like, wow, someone else took the time when everyone's so busy and you have the world is so, I'm always like, wow. So thank you for listening to those. Sylvie
You're
adores
welcome.
you.
I'm
We've talked
stalking
about you.
her.
No, we're all like commenting and sending each other love. And I think we're all similar type of women where we've been through an experience or two, uh, maybe one that stands out in particular with certain kind of people that we came out of that experience forever changed.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe an experience that we never thought we would ever encounter. Um, yeah. So with that, I just want to, and again, I say this to every guest because every guest I have is amazing. I'm going to brag about you a little bit. And then I'm going to let you just tell your story about how you have turned adversity in your life into now you are 70, episode 70. You're an author. Amazing. So I'm just going to give a little bit of a background and then I'm going to let you go into the story. Does that sound good?
Okay, sure.
Okay. So, Roseanne, as I mentioned, for all of you, I'm going to put in the show notes where you can follow her on Instagram, her website, where you can buy her book on Amazon. So, Roseanne wrote a memoir, true story of growing up in West Texas in the oil fields, and you'll give us all the details, where you have come through and survived narcissistic abuse, domestic violence, and you have really navigated that very tumultuous journey, finding your faith. Um, I think you have really opened the door to kind of break some of that silence of generational silence, break the stigma of talking about things that you're quote unquote not supposed to talk about. Um, and I just commend you for A, telling your story, B, telling it in a way where you're so open, where you don't edit parts out, that are very in your writing and in the way you talk about it in Instagram. And I think your purpose in getting to know you, and then I'm going to be quiet here, you wrote this and it poured out of you in an effort to make sense of what happened to you, but also to hopefully inspire anyone listening right now or anyone who reads your book that where they're at doesn't have to be where they stay,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
When I went to my daughter's in Texas, at the end of June, and for a 16th birthday party for my granddaughter, and I came home July the 2nd, and I thought, I have an English lit background, went to Baylor, didn't finish, but the same, kind of thing. And I always thought, oh, it would be great to write a book. There's a whole big long story in the book about a desk that one of the poet laureates of Texas had that my grandmother had acquired. When she died, she gave me the desk and said, "You'll write a book someday." Hmm.
And you want to
Ah,
hold up the book? If you hold up the book, we can give our readers, there you go, Bones Beneath the Prairie. We're going to have a link right down below.
thank you.
Want to
Thank you.
interrupt there? Okay, continue.
Thank you. And so I came home and I thought, I had this incredible childhood in this little bitty town that I think was magical. I mean, how many people in their life can say, my parents, we would go to a bridge party and a friend of ours had a lion in their house.
Yeah.
But that their son had brought home from college. So it was a magical, wonderful place. And I have always wanted to tell the story of this lovely little place. So I started writing these short stories. And as I began to write, God would have me remember things that, oh, when you went back to Albany this time, this was happening. You were running from this man. And I was like, okay, I'm 25 years out of it. I'm happy. I've been married for 23
Okay.
years. This was not a topic of conversation in my life, and it hasn't been for a number of years. And I thought, whoa, where's that coming from? Oh, God, this is kind of weird. And so I just started writing. And in 17 days, I had 65,000 words. I never even, it's going to sound really hokey, but I didn't know the flow. I didn't have an arc. I didn't have an outline. I didn't have jack. It just came. So I knew that God was up to something. And he has done some really weird things with me in my life and some things that I've had to recognize that were him, but I didn't know what I was supposed to do with this. So my children and I have never talked about this.
Okay.
And I started sending them chapters. I'm really close. I have a daughter who's your age, and
Okay.
I'm really have been close to her my whole life. And I started sending them chapters that were really raw before I got an editor involved. And probably way too explicit and things that she shouldn't have seen. And she's very, I'm blocked out of her life at this point in time. So that's one of the, but that happens with memoirists. This is not new.
Mhm.
I am not um, perfunkled by it because I believe that in God's time, she will be able, it's really hard for them to recognize children of violence and abuse in marriages process differently. And if they haven't processed it, which I never thought about that part of it.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
should have, what you were talking about with Joyce, keep your stuff to yourself. And I wouldn't normally say stuff, but you keep it to yourself. And I never should have shared the raw and the explicit. And so I took a lot of that out of the book because it was unnecessary. It was necessary for me for healing. Um,
Yeah.
and so the book, I wrote the book, it took about 3 weeks to edit it. I self-published it on Amazon. And we live in Mexico. We're retired. We live on a fixed income. And I thought, oh, this will be a nice way to earn a little bit of extra income.
Mhm.
This would be nice. Well, that wasn't at all what God had in the plan. And so it's been an experience. The whole publishing thing was an experience, but it has caused me to write my just my guts out. I mean, I have never experienced anything like the desire to write 2 or 3 things a day. And
Mm.
I overwhelm my Substack audience because I'm like, exploding on them and saying, here it is. Wait, I got to tell you this. This is what happened today. And a lot of really incredible things, even in the last 2 or 3 weeks, have happened that I think I told you, I wrote yesterday about I went scavenging on Facebook. And I know better. And I haven't done this in 20 years. And God said, okay, are you sure? Well, yeah, and I don't need you to help me right now. I'll just go in here and look at this and see if anybody's saying anything bad. And I see this picture of my ex-husband, and I just fly into I haven't even thought about this human. And then the next, all these happy, it was his birthday. And so here's all these people saying happy birthday. Well, I decided I have to troll through all of those with God this whole time going, girl, are
And
you
it's like,
sure?
oh, and you're like, it's like,
Yeah. It's stupid. It's
you don't, and
stupid.
as you're doing it, you're like, this sucks, but I'm looking.
Yeah. And so then a minister that we walked with
Mm-hmm.
for 10 years, his name came up, and his PTSD and his new PhD title and his trauma therapy title came up. And I wanted to throw the computer across the room because I thought he knew. He knew. He was involved. He knew. I told him. He knew. And so and so I sat in that, and it was supposed to be one of the days that we were doing this.
We're gonna talk, uh-huh.
Yeah. And I was not in a good place. So it was like God said, okay, saw it. Are you done? Well, yeah, I guess
How'd
so.
that feel? It's like
Yeah.
God's like, did you like that?
Yeah. And and then I get this revelation that you needed to see that for what it was. You needed to understand that sometimes people that you walk with, align yourself with, and it was revelation, and it was in a good way, much better today than it was. But I mean, I was stewing and brewing, and this was, I can't remember what day this was, but we were supposed to do this, and I was like, I'm going to have more than tequila because it's just
Oh,
not going to work.
it's very, and it's really, anyone listening that has been through, and we're going to get into your specific story, and obviously they can read your full story in the book, but I think when you see a picture of someone in your past, maybe you're not on good terms with, you're like, oh, there's so and so, like, and you kind of move on from it, like, oh, I haven't talked to them in a while. When you see a picture of somebody, and correct me if you feel the same, who you've experienced who has abused you in some way, it's for me, seeing a picture is very jarring.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like it. I don't like looking at pictures of myself from certain times. I'm like, just, I don't, and I've done the same thing where I go down and I'm like, why are you looking? Why? What did you think you're going to find? You found it. There it is. Ugh. Oh, and why are they hanging out? Wow.
Yeah,
That,
exactly.
really? And you know. And I had
Hmm.
to be like, bye. You know.
Right.
People just go, la, 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 because they
Yeah.
don't
And
want to get involved. Abuse.
no, and we never would have trolled before. We would have never,
No.
20 years ago, I wouldn't have had
No.
the opportunity. And
Right.
so it
Right.
would have been, and he's been so far in the past, and my husband is incredible and I adore him. And it's
Yeah.
been, I didn't know how this would affect him because I talk about it a lot. And we didn't do that. When I met him, oh, God is hilarious. When you read the book, he
Yes.
set us up on Match.com. I'm not kidding you.
That's how I met my husband. Match.com.
We didn't tell our children. I mean, because I was like, oh my God. Oh, and all this, I didn't see God doing it until I wrote the book. And then he's laughing with me saying, see, I told you I wasn't going to leave you or forsake you. But I actually, after all, let me go back for just a second. The purpose of the book was this. In the end, for me, I worked for a pastor at the height of this horrible thing that was going on in my life. And it was very violent. It was very, um, his lifestyle. He was a church person. The spiritual part of the abuse, I've long not recognized, and I've had to take some of that in and deal with that. The physical part of it, the betrayal, the pornography, there was so, he ran the gamut and he was a con man on top of it. So all of that, I mean, more of a sociopath. And when I was listening to Sam, I thought, oh, this isn't mine. This isn't, I mean,
Yeah.
some of it, but the violence made it somewhat different. But anyway, all of that aside, that's really not why I wrote it. When you when you live through the situation that I did 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 35 years ago, there was no language for it. There was no I've written a story on Substack about there was no sign in the church on the church bulletin board that said abused women this way, with the point.
I saw that on your, yep. Yeah.
Because how many Bible studies have you been in since you've been on your walk that a woman has stood up and said, my husband's beating the crap out of me?
I've been in two this year and nobody has talked about that. One of our women was is going through a divorce, but yeah, like I can imagine that there was no like domestic violence awareness month.
No. And
Oh,
in the South 30 years ago, it was really hard for men who were in leadership positions to not just say, and I don't blame the church. I don't have any animosity or any hurt toward the church. And the pastor that wrote the forward to the book, when he read the book or read the chapters that I sent him, it made him very sad because he said, you could have told me. I would have helped. And he's a trauma therapist today, and he's in his 80s, and he's wonderful. But he said, but I would have listened to both of you, where this other person did not.
Hmm.
And it's there was no language. I get back to being there was no language for it. There were no books in the church library. There was no woman who had lived and was an older woman who was wise, who knew the signs, who could say, sweetheart, here's a book. See if you see yourself in here. So, part of the reason that I wrote the book and that I would like to have it in every shelter for free, and I'm trying to put donors together with human donors together with
Yeah.
shelters that would take it. Even today, there are all sorts of books how to fix it, what it is, what it looks like, all of that, but none where a woman could go in and say, I tried to be honest. I tried to say, he beat the crap out of me with a bedpost. That may not have been your experience, but the things that happen to children and families and all of that, I tried to write it in such a way that a woman could recognize and say, and then on the other side of it, because of my faith was part of it. And just to give you some more background, I didn't know whether or not I was going to tell this story. When I decided the bedpost, let's go back to the bedpost. That was 20 years into the marriage. And that was the day that I finally said, it's done. I'm done. I don't have any money. There was financial. He had controlled all the money. And my parents were gone. I had no backstop. There was nobody to help. And his best friend, this narcissist, like many, didn't risk exposure and he
Yeah.
didn't want to be exposed.
Mhm.
So his best friend had come back into our life and he was a psychotherapist and he was single and he was this marvelous man and very nice and very kind. And he'd come back into our life. He'd been at our lake house the week before. And so the bedpost incident happens. The police get called. They're in the house. I covered the bruises, and when the police take him in the other room, he shows them where I have scratched and clawed and carried on. Okay. So the next morning, I decide I'm going to call his friend. I'm going to tell somebody, you know,
Yeah.
and he's 250 miles away. So it's not like I'm having to tell my pastor, who I adore, that, this is happening in my life. So I talked to him, and 2 weeks later, I left. I drove to my sister's and my sister wasn't open to helping me that night, and I had all my belongings and everything in the truck. So I went to a motel and I hid, and I called him, and he came, and that was the beginning of a choice that I made to step into a world that I looked at God and said, "Sorry, dude, I'm going for this. He makes me feel safe. My ex won't expose me." And I really thumbed my nose at God. And I wrote a long essay about that this week. And it's been really hard to admit. My children looked at me as a pillar. I've always been very spiritual, and
Yeah.
that was really hard. But so from that point, 2 years later, it took me to get a divorce. And that's
Mm.
a whole nother thing. He was pro se. There's this whole courthouse scene. The courthouse scene, do you know what the courthouse scene is?
I do not. I am not there yet.
Okay. The
Please tell
courthouse
me.
scene, the courthouse scene is we had been trying to get a divorce for 2 years.
Hmm.
And I had met Ken the week before on Match.com.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the weekend with Ken, he had asked me to marry him. And I said, dude, I'm not divorced. And he goes, you'll be divorced by the end of next week. And he was a big, great man of faith. Ken was. Still is. And I said, BS. No, I'm not giving up. I'm not ready to give up. I'm no. And so we had a court hearing on Friday. I go to the courthouse and I drive up to my lawyer's office. It's in a little bitty town in north central Texas. And I drive up to the lawyer's office and there are deputies. And I'm like, What's this? And so I step out of the car, and the lawyer meets me and he says, "What the hell have you done?" And I said, "I don't know what. I haven't done anything." And he goes, "Did you bring a gun to court today? Are you going to kill the judge?" Oh, shit. No, excuse me. No. What on earth? And he said, "You need to come in my office." He goes, "They need to search you and they need to search the SUV." What? So I go in his office and he says, "Your ex has called the judge. And he said that you're very upset and that you've come to the courthouse to kill everybody." I never even owned a gun. I never held a gun. So it was like, and of course they didn't find anything. And these two deputies escort me across the street into the courthouse. And now this is a week after meeting Ken, who says you'll be divorced. I am not thinking about Ken. I am beyond integrity is the most important thing in my life. That's what's also really strange about this, that I allowed something like this to happen to me. And I sat at the table, and I'd been doing this for 2 years with this guy, couldn't get a divorce. And I looked at the lawyer with these two deputies standing by this judge who was a Sunday school teacher in this little town that I respected a lot. And I just broke. And I said, "I'm done. It's over today. I don't care. I don't want anything. I just want it over today." And it ended. But if you have lived, and this is another one of the stories that you can't, I've had women in my life now. I'm 70 years old, and I have women in my life since I wrote the book that I've walked with that have walked a similar road to me that never told me. I'm a prayer warrior. I would have done anything for any of them. I'm going to cry. I would have held their hand, but none of us, and we've talked about it since, we've all said we didn't tell each other. We didn't, and it's because it's so humiliating. I mean, it's the most to have to tell a sister or a pastor that this is going on in your home is, and then on top of it, if you have any success, I didn't want to lose my home. I didn't want to lose the cars. I didn't want to lose the double income. Now, I know that sounds vain as hell, but it's the truth.
You're uprooting your whole life.
Yeah.
It's not just leaving. You're literally, especially when someone's in control of finances and, you know,
And I thought I was crazy. I really did. I thought with this human being, and I would have loved to have been on the broadcast with Sam, because I would have loved to have heard his, eh, not analysis. I really don't care
yeah,
about that anymore. I care about, I understand who this person was. And so the person is not the story anymore. The person, God separated that yesterday or day before. The story is about another woman, and so another woman can visually see that there are others out there, and God carried me through it. Even when I thumbed my nose at him and said, "I'm going to walk right into adultery and I don't give two licks. This is what I'm going to do. He makes me feel safe. This is the only way I can leave. I don't care that I know that it's wrong. I'm going to do it anyway."
yeah.
And for how many women actually, Joyce, walk in it and say, "I did this. It was wrong, but I did it, and he carried me through it. He brought me to the other side of it. He gave me Ken on Match.com in the worst hours of my life. And then it took me some time. When I married Ken, we lived in the country. So and he had this hunting business and a hunting lodge. So we lived 7.5 miles from town. No children in school. We worked on Sundays.
Mhm.
Church was out. So when you move into a little place in Texas, at that point I was 47 and he was 52. If you don't have children in school and you don't go to church, your opportunities to connect or are they're just not there. So for 20 years, I never went to lunch with another woman. I never made a friend in this little town. It was just Ken and me and our
Mhm.
hunting lodge and our friends. And through that, God did the healing. I didn't have Sylvie. I didn't have therapy because it was an hour away.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I was healing. The first 3 years that Ken had to live with me, oh, they were bad. They were real. I mean, I just ripped me out of this and went right into his arms and uh,
Your whole you could finally like when you're ripped, you're finally not being abused, and then you're processing. It's almost your nervous system is like
I was mean as
exploding.
hell. I was mean and angry and furious, and I left my peers. I was working for Visa at the time, and I said, "Oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to be at the lodge, and this is going to be wonderful." And so I divorced this person that I wasn't healed from, and I married Ken. And there, but by the grace of God, go I, because he's such a wonderful human being. He taught me about unconditional love. And I always thought God probably had conditions. I'll love you if you
Yes.
do this, and it's
Yes.
bull crap.
Oh. Ah. Okay, so
I'm sorry, I can talk.
no,
All
no,
right.
this is why I have guests. I love to just, and I'm always, whenever a guest is talking, there's so many alleys we could go down.
Yeah.
And in addition to you being on a panel episode with Sylvie, because I think
Yes.
it'll be anyone who has gone through what you've gone through, what Sylvie's gone through, the whole community of women just connecting around that. Let me ask you this. So you grew up small town Texas. Was there, and this might sound like a dumb question, but growing up, did you did you ever imagine that you would be in a situation where a man would treat you this way? Where did you have what was your expectation of what your husband one day might be? Did you have one? Because I know it, I'm just
Yeah, I'm
curious.
gonna. My parents were both very, very type A. My dad went to Blake. My dad was boarding school from the time he was 8 years old. Went
Hmm.
to Worcester Polytech.
Hmm.
Had 3 engineering degrees. So my
Smarty.
yeah. And my mother went to Hockaday and then went to Baylor. So they were both boarding school kids
Texas.
from the family that was what you did.
Uh-huh.
And my dad was raised on the East Coast
Hmm.
and came to Texas. He had been given some oil land and came to Texas, met my mom, and the rest is history. My mom was a Southern Baptist Democrat. My dad was a Northern Episcopalian Republican, and both of them driven to the gills. My mother integrated the schools as a school board member in 1960. So politics were always a part of it. But all of this to say, I was raised by these two very type A parents.
Hmm.
I didn't see a lot of affection. They loved each other to bits.
Hmm.
They were married for 41 years. My mother preceded my dad in death, but my expectation of marriage, oh, let's just say that I was way more interested in 1973 and having sex than I was in getting married. But when you raised in this proper prim and proper, and my family was a family of means,
Hmm.
and so prim and proper and maintaining propriety was the most important thing. So I didn't have guardrails or the this Ken and his dad kissed each other on the mouth. The first time I ever saw these two men, his father loved him. And Ken's 75 today. So when I saw these two men do that, I'd never, the only first time my dad told me that he loved me was when he was being wheeled into the operating room for his quadruple bypass that he didn't survive. So, not a problem with them. They were just
Sure.
very driven.
Simple, yeah.
And so I didn't have, not only didn't have guardrails, I had no parameters. And this guy the sex was wild. Oh, my kids are going to die when they hear this. That,
Hey,
but, but hey, it was 1973.
the
No,
70s.
74, 75.
What are you gonna
And so,
do?
my mother had said, if I ever find birth control pills,
You're like, you just won't find them. No.
right. Yeah. Well, but I couldn't because she was a snoop. And so we were having a lot of sex, and I knew that we had to get married, that I couldn't continue to do this. So I really kind of pushed him into that. He was going through a divorce. He had
Uh-huh.
had an affair. He was having an affair with somebody else. We met. I
Got
went
it.
to work for him. It was a
Yes.
mistake. But I didn't have I didn't even know what to expect. Did you?
No, you don't know anything when you don't know anything. No, I mean, like, it's like, yeah, you see your parents, that's your model, but then you also, every generation's different. Like,
Yeah,
I feel like every generation is more open. And I'm just saying, I'm not saying ours is any better or
but you're
worse. I'm just
right.
saying there's
You're right.
more, you can go online and be like, how do I, 5 ideas to surprise my husband. Whereas before, like everything's available at your fingertips,
Yeah.
or you could get marriage counseling virtually, whereas before it's like, can you even say the word marriage counseling? Like, and if you do, like, don't tell anyone, like, but it's like everything's changed. But I remember from a very young age just thinking, when you get married, like, or when you meet a boy, like all your insecurities will go away,
Yeah.
like anything.
Wrong rainbow.
And I'm like, oh yeah, when you meet the Prince Charming guy, then all your problems vanish. And I'm like, oh, they don't. You just have somebody to maybe help you through them or add to them if it's not a good person. But so yeah, it's just I ask that because I'm like, I don't think anyone, whether they whether they saw it modeled or not, says, man, when I get married, I hope my spouse, treats me like shit and
Yeah.
abuses me. But I just, you never think that you're going to be the one that would allow that. You would never think you'd
No,
allow that.
no. And when my father and his best friend came and rescued me, one of the many times that they did, my father was furious with me because he couldn't, there was no,
Get it.
it couldn't, it didn't compute. And then when I would go back, he struggled with it. It made him angry. I didn't see it. He would say that to me. And it's the same thing that happens when people, just like the first thing that I usually get asked to somebody that's not been through it is, why didn't you leave? You're really smart. You're really beautiful. Why didn't the hell didn't you leave? It's not that easy. It's not easy at all. And I didn't want to be a failure.
Hmm.
Uh, I thought that I was a new Christian. Huh. I'd been raised in the church. I mean,
Sure.
same thing, except Episcopal church and
Yeah, but like where you really like are starting to deepen your,
no,
no, still
no,
no.
no, no. And when I got saved and I went to Baylor, I got sent to Baylor because my dad, there were guardrails for me having sex.
Oh,
He,
yes,
it
yes.
like they still had segregated dorms. Girls and boys didn't stay in the same dorms. So my father was like, no, no choices. I was accepted at Sophie Newcomb. I was accepted at Vanderbilt. But no, 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 no.
That would be
We're
separate.
going, you're not going that far away. And we're going where, because they already knew. They already knew that I was a wild child and that I had, I mean, it is what it is.
It's
And
yeah,
today it is what it is. And at least I can be honest about it, not to shock, but to say, who, if not me, who? Who is going to talk about things that only I experienced? And it was, I wish I had made better choices.
sure. I
But
said the
as I
same.
look
Yeah.
at it today, as I seriously sit here with you and look at it, I can tell you that God had a purpose in all of it. No matter how bad it looks, He always knew that I would be a willing vessel, that because He knows us when we were formed in the womb. So He knew me. He knew I would be a willing vessel. And I can tell you there's a lot of that stuff that I wish I had made different choices, but He knew that I would make those bad choices. And He knew that at this point in my life, never dreaming at 70 years old, I feel 40. I've never felt, it's been a long time since I felt so alive and so received.
Mm,
Being here with you, the receiving of
mm,
someone else's heart, the being able to tell the story and pray to the good Lord that the book makes it into the hands of the people that need it. When you had Sam on, I sent you a note and I told you that if you haven't read Scott Peck's book, The People of the Lie,
mm,
it's 1982.
mhm.
I was divorced. I was married and living with Ken, and my lawyer, who'd been a business partner, she sent me this book, and she said, "Oh my God, you have to read this book because you're gonna know." Because I told her all these stories when I was going through the divorce. She finally had to quit representing me because he violated her and her space and her family. That's a story that's in the book. And so when she sent me this book, and so it has Scott Peck was doing early work. He and Sam are the same ilk or the
Mm,
same time frame,
mhm.
and he was doing early work, but he was chronicling clients and experiences. So his is naming the thing, and he's the first one. He may not have been the first one, Sam probably was, that named malignant narcissism. And when I
Mhm.
saw it and when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh. But for the first time, I felt like I was out of it, and it was wonderful. And when I listened to Sylvie talk to you about, I know that there's still bumps in the road, but some of these bumps have been me having to live this again after I had put it aside
Yep.
and shelved it. Um,
Mhm.
but it's been interesting. But it wouldn't have that led me to you. That led me to Sylvie. I mean, so God is busy opening doors, and I just pray that I'll be able to find the donors and the shelters or the what wherever church libraries.
Can
But we
already think
have to
of.
have trauma trained. God hasn't called me to men. And I know that men experience it. So I'm not, I don't mean, and I meant to tell you from the
They
beginning,
do.
it's on my note sheet.
Yeah, I think like 1 out of 3 men say they've
Yes.
experienced they're very like for them to report is even more,
Can
it's
you
less
imagine?
common, but they're like, you know,
Well, yeah. So I get it, and I just pray that the message that I've gotten from God is there will be people who will make sure that the books get in the hands of the shelters or the churches. And I just want a woman, if there's another book out there, if in your listening audience, there's other humans that have written about their experience and their true life experience so that other women could see themselves, I would welcome getting to know them and talking to them.
mm. And
I
that's
mean, I
exact.
can't believe I'm just,
No, this is exactly what it's for. Like literally, I can already think of, by the way, you don't even, well, Sylvie worked at a shelter in Livermore, California, near us in the Bay Area called Shepherd's Gate. And she went to volunteer. There's, and it was funny. I was like, oh my gosh, Sylvie, there's shelters here. Where are they? Like, you just don't, it's happening in every community behind closed doors, whether you, at every income level,
oh, that's
abuse
the
is
truth.
going each way. Abuse is happening.
Yes, yes.
It's a, and you mentioned the circle of your friends, how, I mean, there's so many questions I have for you. Like, what if someone listening right now is like in a situation where they where they're thinking maybe it hasn't even gotten physical yet. If it's gotten physical, I think that's a pretty clear indication you're being abused if someone's putting their hands on you. But do you remember how it actually like some of the signs that led that the moments you realized, okay, this is not a healthy connection?
Oh yeah, and it was early. We
Very
were
early. Okay.
dating. We were dating, and um, we were close to. We were talking about marriage. His divorce was coming final, and he had an airplane, and he was going back and forth to San Antonio, and he was still going back and forth to his former home where his ex-wife was, and um, it was just. I mean, this is 2 or 3 months in. Not. I mean, we were together in the biblical sense. And he was still carrying on with other women, his ex-wife, his mistress, and me. And so one day, his mistress called, and I happened to answer the phone at the business where I'd gone to work for him.
Mhm.
And when she answered the phone, I just flat out told her. And now at this point, I don't know what he's capable of. This at this point, I don't know. And I told her, I said, I'm sleeping with him too. And she asked me to let her speak to him. And she told him, buzz off. I'm not doing this, whatever. And he came into the office where I was and he grabbed me. And I had a 14 karat gold watch on that my parents had given me for graduation. And he just twisted it off my arm and he slapped me. He was livid. And some part of me thought I deserved it because and he said, you triggered me. Not, and trigger wasn't a word. He said, you pushed my buttons. That was what we called it back then. And at that moment, it was for whatever stupid reason that I thought after that there was going to be anything good come out of this relationship. I have 3 wonderful children, but that is it. And when I was going back and surveying my life, I cannot tell you, I cannot name a good thing. There's no, and my children say, no. 2 of my children say, you're wrong. You're making this up. There were happy times. There were good times. There were times they didn't live in the bedroom with me. They
Mhm.
didn't live my life. And I've had a couple of uh, PTSD trauma therapists review the book because 2 of my children, believe that it's a pack of lies. And that's difficult, but I'm not there. I'm way past there. But I wanted someone to read parts of it to be able to say to me, you are not crazy. These are lived experiences. No one could have written this with this clarity. Yes, you could have, a writer could have studied and studied and studied and studied and tried to replicate this in a novel, but this is lived experience. This is breathed experience. This is so, but it was because I went back to all those old places in me, the old places that said, you're imagining things. You're imagining things. Okay, that's way off what you asked me.
No, that is it. You're hitting on, I'm nodding because everything that you're saying is what people who have been abused, you gaslight yourself because so you had initially said, people say, gosh, Roseanne, why didn't you just leave? Like you are a strong, confident woman. It doesn't make sense if somebody is not treating you well, you just remove yourself.
Right.
What they've clearly never been. in the vicinity of a narcissist because, like Sam said on episode 29, Professor Vaknin, something happens when you're around these people where you they study you, they learn you, and
Yeah.
there's anytime like you had a quote about like the roses after the terror. It's the high highs, the low lows, and then um
The sex
cognitive dis
afterward.
the cognitive dissonance
Hmm.
where he's beating you and then you're at a high, sorry, sorry, roses. And then it's the only it's they say what happens in your brain is similar. It's like a drug trauma bond. It's
Yeah.
not just like leave. It's not that simple. And
And it should have been. It should have been. And I had a tremendous support system back then. I just didn't my my experience with love was performance.
mm,
Because as long as I made fabulous grades, as long as I was living up to what
yeah,
what they want, they wanted me to be a pharmacist because that was in 1970, whatever the frick
that
it
was the
was.
thing.
That's going to be how a woman can sustain herself and make a living. I wanted to go to drama school because I loved the stage. I wanted the lights. I wanted to be an actress. And it was like,
They're like,
no, not happening. You're going to do this. Well, chemistry, it just didn't happen. But I learned that to get love, to get their attention, to get their affection, I had to perform. And so one of the things that that was hard for me is that I think that I looked at him, if I just perform a little bit better, if I'll just be nicer, I really, I really did at one point love him. I have no doubt about that.
yeah,
Uh, but that didn't last long. And then it was all about me not wanting to be a failure. I have a 80 something year old friend that was the wife of my dad's best friend who still lives in West Texas. And in my life, I felt like that she's been critical of some of my choices. And so that whole big bunch of my parents' friends, I steered clear of because my parents had nothing great to say about me during this whole thing. And he was running cons on them. So they had lots of reasons to not like this person. But she was my first paid, I'm gonna cry. She was my first paid subscriber on Substack, and she did an annual plan. And in her note, she says, because this story needs to be told. And I thought, holy Jesus, this is vindication. It was God saying to me, see, they really saw you differently than your parents even saw you. And um, she was talking to me one day and she goes, oh, did you know about this person and their drug abuse? Oh my God, no. So she has a whole different perspective of my life from where she sat and in her life. She ordered two of the books and she had me uh, write a note to somebody else in the front of one of the books. And it's a friend of hers who's been through something similar. And a surprise to me, but it was beautiful that she was the one that I was the most concerned about that would be critical or tell me that, okay, that wasn't true. You don't remember.
and yet she's your biggest champion.
Yeah. And she's wonderful and precious. And there's a lot of it that she doesn't understand. It's really hard for her. That whole group, that age group, that 80 something was a different time. And exactly what you said is true. They
Keep
become, it's become,
opening. Yeah.
this is so silly. When I got my period, that my prim and proper mother handed me a Kotex box and said, the instructions are in the box.
You're like, Mom, you just
But you
you
go
still
back.
talk about it, huh?
This is 1968.
You don't, you
And,
just
and no, and that was anything that had to do with that was we weren't going to go there. We weren't going to talk about it. Here's the box. The instructions are inside. Okay. Well, so there was nothing for me. If the affection had been there and it hadn't been performance based, maybe the pastor that wrote the forward would tell you he kept telling me there's a book called The Performance Trap. Do you remember this book?
I have not.
It's an old book. It's like
Okay.
60s or 70s. There's a book called A Performance Trap. That's an old psychology book. And Jimmy would always say, Roseanne, you've got to read that book. I mean, he goes, I believe your life is all based on performance. And I'm like, and a real high achiever, always
Yeah.
wanting to achieve. But some of that had to do with what kept me and what you were talking about and what Sam said about they they know.
They can
He-
smell you. The narcissists are like, who is highly empathetic and looking for validation? You. All right. And then the ones that don't need it, yeah, you won't fall for my games. So I'm not gonna. They
Yeah.
find the two in the corner that are like,
Yeah. Yeah. And
that's
I
you.
was that and more, you
Yeah.
know. I'm so thankful that God brought me on the other side of it and that I have been able to put it down on paper. I believe that my children will come around if they don't. This is God's, it's not mine. I take no ownership of it. I'm it's hard. Holiday season's hard because
Talk about
I'm
that.
cut off at
Talk
the pass but God has a plan, and I've had 70 years. This is where you are in your walk is so important because when you get here, if you journal or if you make notes to yourself, your podcast is going to be your history to some degree.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's so important that you understand that all of this, all your experience has been so that you could be in that chair right now, so that you could hear hearts, speak to women, speak to people. Um, and it's only going to keep going. And when you get to this point, you'll look back and see the cinema of your life and know that he had a hand in it. He had a hand on you the whole time.
Mm. That is such a cool way to the cinema of your life. Like that is thank you for your kind words that I feel that way about this podcast, the way you feel about your book, that like it comes out of you and then the world is starting to like arrange itself to help more people hearing what comes out of you, which you initially are like, what's happening? But okay, the way you felt compelled to write this, I feel compelled to do this, this thing where I'm like, and it's I love that you are creating a platform through your book and through talking about your book to say, especially as women, to speak to other women out there who might be doing the dishes, walking their dog, doing whatever, exercising, listening to this podcast. And I'm telling you, when I was going through my situation, podcast stories shifted me because I was like, I'm not ready to talk about this with everybody, but wait, what is this narcissism? Oh shit. Wait, what? And then it's just through talks. So I'm saying something that you're saying right now can trigger someone to tell somebody. Like,
And don't you think that narcissism and the narcissist word, one of the things that I've learned with God is that labeling people is very dangerous. And
yep,
it's dangerous to me. I don't do it. And so I pulled away from the narcissistic
okay.
label, malignant narcissist. No, and it's not a negative. It's just that
Yeah,
I had to pull back from that because I think it's overused. And
yeah.
I think that it's it's really so much more than that. And we do have to give, hopefully, people exactly what you're saying. People, women, whoever they are and wherever they are, will hear something that will cause them to say, I'm not alone. Because I felt alone. And these friends of
Feel
mine who've come up and told me, and one friend who won't even um I wanted to do a Zoom and blur everybody and just talk because I, if I don't dominate the conversation, I felt like that I could pull out of them and that we could have something tangible. And one said that she absolutely wouldn't do it. She wasn't in a place, but it's taken till I heard you and Bree that I understood. No, she's you and Bree, you and Sylvie, that I understood that she's not there. Um, and she's a brilliant, brilliant woman. And I was again, just the people will come out of the woodwork,
they will.
but
They
survivors don't comment on posts. So you still feel like you're wandering in the wilderness. Look at all my posts, look at all my writing. No, because you're trying to hide your paper trail. You know, that's the skunky, awful part of this is that it's a constant. Somebody said, at least with the name of the book being Bones Beneath the Prairie, if she put a paperback in the bottom of her purse, he might not see. It doesn't say tips and tricks
on. Oh, right. Like if if a spouse who found that
book.
would be like, are you trying to get help from me abusing you?
Yeah, yeah. And I didn't think about that. And there still are no signs on the bulletin board at church that say abused women this way, or even so when I was coming up with this, trying to figure out how to get it into the churches, how do you even make it available when that's a topic that doesn't get discussed? I mean, even today, I'm not in the church. I we're not Catholic.
Mhm.
So basically, where we are in La Paz, that's all that's available. There's a couple of small Christian churches, but Ken and I read every day. We read the Bible every morning. We pray together, and that's not to sound pious, but
No, it's
that's
just
just us, and
your relationship. Yeah,
that's how we connect. And
totally.
I just don't. I haven't quite figured out how God will use it in the church, which for me, that's where it's needed. It makes me angry because I know that it's going to be so hard unless there's a move of God to allow women to feel safe to talk about it in the church because it's still a male dominated entity. And I am all about the structure. I understand the word, but God does not approve of this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
He doesn't want his
Totally.
daughters harmed.
100%.
And there's so much that's changed in 30 years. I can look at you, I can listen to you, I can listen to Sylvie, and I know that a lot has changed, but I don't think a lot has changed in the church. And the church is where, and church women of age, and the Lord talks about that in the scripture about a woman of wisdom and a woman in her 80s with her silver hair. Those are the ones who have the ability to take something like this in, and because of life experience, some of that is just the simple logic or that that you know because you've lived,
Yeah,
seen all the stuff.
sure, sure.
And now,
But
oof,
no, but I think is so I couldn't agree more because you need not only just because you've been around, but you develop through all these experiences like you literally change and you go through stuff, you see your friends go through stuff. I'm glad you made that comment. I mean, I was raised Catholic, obviously very male dominated. And then a couple episodes talked about like, the things I thought were good and the things I thought were kind of like, I'm like, this is not for me. Um, and I'm like I'm a little way too extroverted for this, but I was baptized, everything, and then I'm being sort of born again. Um, I am all about now I'm studying the word women play a big role in he appears to women
Huge.
first. I'm like, hmm, okay, interesting. Didn't learn that growing up.
And he used them in mighty ways. Um, I I believe at this point that God is raising up a mighty army of women warriors who are willing to step out into the mire and step out into the fire and say, "To hell with it. I
Yeah,
love you, Lord, and I will be a willing vessel. I will be clay in your hands, and I will go do." And when you start living this life I mean, this road that you're on, it is a hell of a lot of fun. He is so much fun, and he is so much fun, and there's so many surprises. I can remember walking by people in the height of one of my charismatic lives and walking in a restaurant and him saying, just walk by that person in the restaurant and put your hand on it. And I was all about it. Yep. And he said, just pray, just walk by and tap them and just pray. And I mean, we were in like a cafeteria.
yeah.
Oh, no, I'll do it all. And
You
I'm
get
not
the
afraid
download.
of it,
Like,
but I went through a 20-year period of time that I was sort of like, I sinned deliberately. I said, square to your face, God, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to walk straight into this adulterous situation and I'm just going to do it. I know it's not right. I'm going to do it anyway. And then I thought he could never use me again. And I think that's the other biggest message of the book is look at all the crap that I've walked through. And if God can use me, oh my goodness, those of you who haven't had walked through some of this garbage, he can really use you.
mhm.
And he will if you'll let him and be available to it. This is a rebirth for me too, Bree. It's this wonderful feeling that you know that he's moving inside of you and he's living and breathing and he's an organism and you I had hope, but this is different. This is youthful, this is invigorating. This is if I were to die tomorrow, I would die so happy and so peaceful and so joyous to be in his arms, but also to know that I stepped out and did what he asked me to do at the end.
That's beautiful. That you weren't afraid to tell your story, to, like you said, just be real,
Yeah,
right? I, I, that's that. And you say you feel so invigorated and like, he's like, that's how I feel. And I think there's something about after you come out of a situation where like you were abused in some way and to different degrees, whether it's emotional, physical, and you make it through and you come out, and then you realize there's like a freedom in I think before when you're like in an abusive situation, you're so cautious about how to be and how to like avoid landmines, right? Like, yeah, just don't like you're not going to win with one, just be quiet. And then when you're out of that and you have a good circle around you, you're like, I can I can say whatever the fuck I want. Oh my
right?
God. Like, I'm not going to get in trouble. Like,
Yep.
they want me to say what I want because they're not trying to control me. This is amazing. And then, by the way, if people don't like it, that's fine. But I got my crew and nobody's like trying to control me. It's beautiful.
I loved your story about the wackadoodles. The
Oh, I kept saying, because
you
yeah,
didn't call that's not what you said, I don't
I
think.
think I did the wackadoodles. Like, I used
Okay.
to think, yeah,
Because those of us who've done this and who have get electrified by him moving can be real wackadoodles and
I
can
mean,
can cause people that have been okay, Episcopalians,
yes,
Catholics, Lutherans,
yep.
Presbyterians, and you see this woman that's there's there's nothing in this world like going to a black church. Nothing.
Oh,
Nothing.
the gospel.
Oh, just
Fire.
oh, and the whole and they're so real and they're so alive and they're so when my mom was integrating the schools,
So amazing.
my dad has this oh, there were only 6 children. Let's don't I mean
but still like
Yeah.
right?
And our house got egged, and my dad, okay, here's this blue blood, highly educated human being, and he's horrified because my mother is stepping out into it. I mean,
Oh, right. She's
and
rocking
she's,
the boat.
oh, 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 and the
Good
men
for
in
her.
this little country
Oh,
town.
they don't. Oh, she was. They don't like
But, but 1960, just, you have to really go back
different.
there. And I forgot where that story was going. Something that just went, what were we talking about? Because it was important.
Oh, you're oh, where are we going?
It must not have been that
Oh
important.
no, no, I don't know. It's okay.
Well,
Well,
anyway, I know that, oh, the just the spirit.
oh yes, the wackadoodles.
When you, if you walk into, when we were little, and so here's my dad. So just think about your education, and here's this man who has all these degrees, and he's very prim and proper. And my mother would drag him to the black church on Sundays because she was out to prove a point, right? So we would go, and I was a little bitty kid, and it was like amazing. And
So much energy.
oh, and when I was going through one charismatic phase, that I had a friend who was walking, a female who was walking in ministry, and excuse me, and she was walking in a black ministry. Oh my God. I mean, we were on the floor, we were rolling around, and it was, I mean, it sounds cray cray, but we had a blast.
Don't knock it till you try it.
No, no. And so you're just fixing to walk into all these experiences, and some of it is so false. I'm making it
There's a
light, but some of it is so false, and you have to be able to discern the difference. And I walked in some stuff that was really false, and so
you're
I'm
like
not going to deny that. But he
it's
still
all
used me, and he's going to use you in a mighty way. You just get ready, girl.
oh, you are like so making me so excited because when you say that when and anyone who's been listening to the podcast for the past maybe like 4 or 5 episodes, faith actually in
Exactly.
the last it's creeped its way in and now I'm like it wasn't the intention. Like I didn't even have a close relationship with God when I started it and then he was like knocking on my door and now he's like front and center. But he was very patient. He's like, can I be in your logo now?" And I'm like, "Yes, yes." Um, uh, where was I going with that? I don't even know.
How
Oh,
did you name the program? Stop. Just tell me.
oh,
I want to
you know
know.
what? I was honestly, I was sitting, well, I was at a Christmas party. I had had a one too many, and I told my friend Sheeta that I wanted to start a podcast 2 years ago. She ended up leaving a microphone on my doorstep a couple days later. Coolest person ever. But the name that I actually, when I first Adventures in Adversity, it kind of came as like a little download where I was like, Adventures in but I remember thinking like, oh, this is not good. Like it's lame. Like people, when I would say it, I'd always kind of, it was just like, I felt like I was trying too hard. And now, of course, I've stepped into it, but it did kind of feel like when you said, something said like put your hand on the shoulder in the cafeteria. It felt like do a podcast, Adventures in Adversity. Here's the microphone. I'm like, okay, like, but not really knowing. Like when you're writing, like I don't even know how to do this. You know,
No, and so with your background, this is what was funny when I was hearing you talk about what you did in the world. Are you still doing that in the world?
and
You still have a job?
yes, yes, I
Okay.
do.
Okay. Okay. But with that experience, adventures and inadversity.com is way the hell too long for a .com.
I know, I
And
know.
when I
I'm
saw it, I thought, oh, this has to be God because
I'm
I
like,
would have looked at it.
Adventures in Adversity. I'm like, it's long. I don't even know what like. And then I remember thinking like, I just it's been such a it's just really interesting. It almost feels like when you're at the lowest of low, you have no idea. And when everyone tells you, like, you'll come out of it and you're like, what are you talking about? How am I possibly going to come out of this? I feel awful. And like, then you look up and these people have come into your life or these things happen. But let me ask you this when you were at the lowest of the low, I know you're obviously in a great place now. And do you remember, if anyone listening is going through those abusive situations, like, do you remember what you were holding on to or what kind of carried you through some of those really dark moments or things you would say to yourself to keep going?
I prayed. I mean, I was a new Christian, new at 1981, I think is when I
Yeah.
was actually really saved. And I had, I had been involved in charismatic churches and in this Baptist church where I'd worked. And so I had core beliefs. And so I just kept thinking I had made a vow. And of course, you don't have anybody to talk to. So, because you're not telling, right? And
Mhm.
so I made a vow to God. I love God. I love Jesus. This is really good. I need to try to figure out how to be better. When I would go to therapy, which we did for 12 years, Bree, we went to therapy for 12 years, and he would never let me talk about the bruises, right? And so this therapist, when I would go on days by myself and I was bruised, and I would somehow indicate to him it's Christian, it was Christian therapy, but he was a licensed uh, psychotherapist. But I would even go down that road of, there might be a bruise on my leg, or can I show you something? And he would stop me because in Texas, at that point, they had to report it. And the court system is rigged, in my opinion, against women in these situations. My ex-husband was pro se, represented himself, and he screwed me and tattooed me and used I was going about it with lawyers and with what money I had. And he knew how to game the system because he was a gamer and a con man. And
Form of the
he
abuse
would
through the legal system.
well,
Yep.
yeah, and he would tell the judge, "Oh, she burned that down. She burned those boxes up. She came," and hook,
Why?
line, and sinker, and hook, line, and sinker. And I never had a way to say it. And there has to be some sort of equalizing. And I know that there's a movement afoot right now to try. There's a lot of women who are very unhappy with the court system because in family court, it is really not fair to women who have come through especially this kind of trauma and lived through it. And I knew the day that the lowest of the low was the night that he hit me with the bedpost. And we had this huge four-poster bed with these 4-foot mahogany,
I know.
the bed
Yeah.
was 4 feet and then the
Mhm.
post was 4 feet off the ground. And he took it off and he laid into me, and my kids came downstairs. And I think it was probably the first time that they'd ever heard us, that it had ever gone beyond those doors. So I had high school age and one junior high. And they came downstairs, and I was clawing and fighting and scrapping, and I didn't care if I killed him. And I knew at that moment in my heart that one of us was going to die. I can honestly say I knew I was going to die, or one of us, and because I was not opposed to killing him. At that point, I thought, I'm not doing this. I'm done. I I don't know what your problem is. Um, and it was always the biggest danger with this human is confrontation or integrity or naming a thing that they did. And his was this uh, he was deeply involved in really scary porn. And here's this church member. How am I going to tell a pastor? How am I going to tell this man that I work for and that I love that these videotapes are in my closet and y'all are coming over here and having prayer group? I mean, it was, I was so effed up. My brain was so scrambled, and not anymore. And I never ever thought that I would tell this story, but it's important. And it's important. The lowest of the low was when I knew that one of us was going to die. and the only thing I had left was prayer. And this man out in the wings, who was his best friend, who he would have never risked exposure to, ever. And when I'm telling this man this whole thing, this is his best friend from childhood. They went through the Jesus movement together, for pity's sake. And he was like, and they didn't have trauma training back then, right? There's no PTSD. This is 35 years ago, 40 years ago. And he was like, 30 years ago. And he was like, this sounds like lived experience. Are you sure? Are you going through the change? Um, have you had a breakdown? Are you having a breakdown? I mean, they're logical things. This is not
Yeah.
the man that he recognizes. My stepdaughter would tell you that this isn't the man that raised me.
It's like they can't, people that they can't accept it.
No. And
That
it's hard because they didn't see it.
they have to admit, like they say with the flying monk, or the people that won't admit it because they have to admit that they missed something. They
Yeah.
somehow can't say that, you know. So
And I would just like for women to be able to speak up. Go find a woman that has authority, especially in the word. If I hadn't had prayer, if I hadn't had the word, if I hadn't had that holding on to him and believing that something that I would get out of it, that I would escape, that I could escape. And I left without my children. I left. He went to the lake one weekend and I packed a Ford Excursion and it was this giant monstrosity of a vehicle. And I loaded it with my bulldog and everything that I owned and a computer and a desk and a chair, everything so that I could stay connected to the work that I was doing. And I left. And I left without my children. And that's the second question that I get asked. Leaving isn't neat. Leaving, leaving is what it is. And everybody just needs to get over it because
nothing about
leaving is what it is. And my kids, even today, why did you do that? Why did we trusted you?
why did he do that? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
why did like you know, when you're being abused, I can't see how the ending would be anything but awful, if even getting out, because the abuser will make sure that it's not easy. Or, oh, excuse me, mister. Okay. Oh, okay. Hold on. He agrees. Hold on. Boba. He smells cooking. Um, no, it's, and and I saw that you, like, a lot of people ask, yeah, why don't why doesn't he just leave? Why doesn't she just leave?
And it's most of the time the she. And my she not wanting to leave was I had a beautiful 5,000 square foot home. I had all the stuff, which in hindsight was a downfall. But back then, and it's probably this way today too.
Yeah, you
I have a friend who said, a sister, a prayer sister at the very end, who I told, who said, you must leave. You must go to a shelter right now. Are you
you're
kidding?
like, hold on a second.
Hello?
Wait, I just take a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to a shelter because that to me was poverty.
Yeah.
That
Yep.
was, and it's so
It
far from the truth. But
But that's the reality of what you think. Yeah,
it,
right?
and you don't want that for your children. You don't want that for yourself. You want to try to figure out how you can manage this. But if I had stayed, he would have killed me. And because he was so close and he was so angry, he was having an affair. He was having an affair. And we went to counseling and it was a husband and wife counseling team at a pastoral center. And he told them that he was leading her to Christ and that they couldn't stop monkeying around because he would lose her to Christ. And
Wow.
so I had the receipts. By this time, I had the credit cards because he just said, then he told them, no, it's over with. So the night that the bedpost happened is I had the receipts. I had the cell phone records. And I laid it out on the bed because I finally decided I was going to confront it regardless of the consequences, but I
Yeah.
really didn't think,
You didn't think that was gonna happen.
did you? Whatever your consequences were when you did the confrontation? I
No,
mean, they
you
are
don't.
shocking people.
You actually don't, when you confront a narcissist, you think, well, we're just gonna like talk about it. Because like it's right here. You have the thing.
Yeah,
But
the
then
proof, the
fucking
proof.
World War III, right? I'm so sorry that this all happened to you. I should have said
Don't
that
be.
much earlier. I know you're okay now, but uh, it's just, it's just wild to me how this just happens to people and
It
you
does.
survive it, but it's just
But we're raising up and we're giving voice to it. What you're doing is giving voice to it. It's giving a witness to it. It's giving uh, reality to people who've never been able to say it out loud. If I had ever seen a book, if anybody had ever handed me anything that I could have read, this woman went through this, and even if it had been similar, at least I could have said, I'm
oh,
not crazy. I'm
that's
not
the thing.
losing my mind. I'm not, and because I know that you thought you were crazy.
Oh, I thought I was like, because I would, when we would get in arguments, she would actually say, that never happened. You're imagining things. And I'd be like, wait,
Exactly.
what? I go, what are you talking about? And then I'd be like, wait, she said that. Fuck, but I don't know. You said that. And then, oh, here we go again. And you're like, no, like, and then you're like, forget it. And then you actually, because it's so up and down, you have start to have memory issues. It's a CPTSD thing where you're like,
Yep.
um, it's the gaslighting, and then it's just a when you're confused, you're easier to manipulate. And God, I didn't know this until like 6 months ago that God doesn't create confusion.
He's not a god of chaos, ever. Never been the god of chaos. Never, ever. So, and that should be the first indicator. Um, it wasn't, I didn't realize, honestly, in all that I'd read, I didn't realize that he didn't want me not to be harmed. That's weird. But I didn't see anywhere in there that it said, it just didn't occur to me.
Yeah.
I, I guess I thought that he thought it was okay and I needed to work it out, or I needed to get better, or I needed to be better, or I needed to grow, or I needed to be this person. But that wasn't truth. That was false theology. And it's harmful. And I don't think that I'm alone even today.
Oh,
These women that have told me that they're only one of them is even close to my age. The other ones are younger. And the one that I told you is brilliant. This is a scholar. This is someone that it just shocked me to my core when she told me. And I can see some of her and her background, knowing some of her background, that she just wanted to make it right. She didn't want her family destroyed. She wanted to figure out a way to love this man so that
yeah.
everything would be better. And if I just love better, if I just
Love it
love,
enough. Yeah.
and that was sort of the message from the church when this kind of stuff, because
Love
men,
it.
oh, they don't want
Love
to talk about this. Yeah,
it.
just
You can't love a narcissist and to heal. You can't. There's no, like, do you know what? There's some one-liners from Sam Vaknin's interview that I'll remember forever. He said, narcissists, it's an absence masquerading as a presence.
yeah,
Like, and their goal with you is to completely annihilate who you are. So they just use you to kind of, there's no, if you're truly have narcissistic personality disorder, you got to get out. They need Jesus in a different, there's nothing you can actually do.
no.
Um,
There's a really good book that's also from like 19, oh gosh, it's so probably 1978, 79, called
Yeah.
Violence Against Women. And
Mm.
uh, when this first started happening, I went to a Baptist church. So I went to the Episcopal church first. Oh, this is hilarious. You're going to just love this because they're very Catholic, right?
Yes. I'm a guilty Catholic.
So, yeah, he,
Born
he
again.
just, no children. We'd been married a couple of years, and he just beat the crap out of me. And I didn't want to tell my family. And I believe Jesus, right? So, but I'm Episcopalian. So I go to the church by myself and I go and I kneel and I start praying and I'm sitting there thinking, please, Lord Jesus, let the priest come in. I need somebody to talk to. I
I
need
bet
to,
they
and
are.
it was the priest that married us. And back then you couldn't get married to a divorced person in the Episcopal Church unless it was approved by the bishop. So the bishop had approved, and this was now fixing to be the new bishop, but he was the pastor, and he was like, why are you here? And I'm in the sanctuary, right? On my knees, and
You're
because
like, Jesus said to
Episcopalians
help
are different.
people. Jesus
Yeah.
said help people that are kneeling and crying.
But
Yeah.
different from Catholicism, Episcopalians don't go and kneel. They're kind of pretty private about, their stuff. And he came in and I can remember telling him what had happened. And he said, oh, you need to go to therapy. You need to get a counselor. I mean, I'm not equipped. This isn't, you need to go. And it took me till
You had
probably,
your toddler with you and you were
no, I had no children. I had
no,
no
oh, this was
children.
none. Okay, there was
This was
another part where
before, this is before
you
children.
left.
And
Okay.
it took me a long time to forgive him. When I went through, because I thought, you asshole,
You're supposed to help me.
you are supposed to have the hand of God, the heart of God. You're supposed to reach into a place, but oh my God, no, we don't want this going on. We can't. Oh Lord, and she's from a prominent family, and what's going to happen? And no, we're not going there. And it was so wrong. Um, there were so many missteps along the way, but God had a plan, and God knew that at this point that I would be his vessel and that I would hopefully help someone else see themselves in these circumstances and be able to say, there are people out there that want to help. I I am in a whole bunch of the narcissist and survivor groups on Facebook. Can I just say that there's a lot of hurting people in those groups that aren't healed and leading them and they shouldn't be, and hello, and
There's some,
I
yeah,
had to
and
pull out.
no, and Sam Vaknin talks about that too, that like it's not all like in
It's
every
trolls.
space, in church, in you gotta like be careful who you're listening to and who's like in it to just get all this attention and who really wants you to get out of victimhood and move on to like survivor, not just like dwell in the, you know what I mean?
And there's a whole lot of dwelling in the
Yes.
stuff. And I
Yes.
sound like I'm dwelling, but
No, no,
you're talking.
you're
We're
telling your
talking.
story. You're saying like, but no, it's it, those there's so many people hurting and they're like looking for when you're in the depths of it, you're like, you need a reality. You have no sense of reality because
None.
they're your
He didn't
reality.
either.
Sam Vaknin says the narcissist becomes your reality tester. So don't you actually don't know what's going on somehow. When people are like, "Oh, why don't you just leave?" You're like, "Because I couldn't see straight or I didn't understand and I didn't know what narcissistic abuse was."
And
Uh
I wanted him to love me. I
you,
wanted to be loved. And some of that I've come to that was real important to me. I wanted to be loved. And once I lost my parents, that
uh,
was, and I was young. I was younger than you are. And I had lost both my parents. And that's a tough place when they had been your support system. I mean, they had offered support. They had offered, we'll get you and the children out of it.
oh, that's great.
Many years ago, before he moved us to the city, when we were still living in the same town with my parents, my mom and dad came to me and said, he's going to kill you and those kids. And I was like, oh, For Pete's sake. No, he's going to kill you. And we're going to get those kids. We're going to take those kids away from you, Roseanne. If you don't think about leaving him because he's going to kill you. And I'm like, he's not going to kill me. He's just a shit. You know, he's just mean. He's
Uh-huh.
just, and when I saw the picture of him yesterday or day before, when I was doing my trolling, he's, his image to me was the devil incarnate. His, everything about
You
his,
just
he has dementia. So, but I haven't seen him in years. And it was shocking to me.
shocking. Mhm.
And, and I can't say that I was sad. Um, but it was the realization that I I have a lot of discernment, and why I couldn't discern that is I mean, it's just only by God, and only by God that I survived it. And I'm now into repeating a whole lot of stuff. Sorry.
No, I think
What?
honestly, I had a thought the other day that like when you said you're ready to be used as a vessel and the book, and for me it's like the podcast and just all of a sudden stepping into this role where I'm like I want to advocate for men and women who are quote unquote voiceless, meaning maybe they just can't speak up or they're too scared or they just are like, listen, I don't have a podcast, but can I like can you talk about it so that people know about abuse? I'm willing to talk. And I'm like, all of a sudden I'm like, what is this whole thing? And I was walking the other day and I actually started like crying on my walk, happy cry, because I go, I had like a download and it was from I'm starting to learn like what's from God because it was very clear. It was like
It is clear.
I needed you to feel what narcissistic abuse is before you could like help people through it. And then I was like, wait, what? Why would you? And then my first thought was, why would you want me to feel that? And then I was like, but if that's what I'm hearing, then I trust you because I'm out of it. And that would make sense because I'm enjoying this now. But okay, maybe I'm seeing a purpose to this, even though I'm so pissed that that happened. But okay, like I'm starting to be like, I would be a better podcast host if I knew what that felt like.
Yep.
So, and it's just, I'm starting to hear things where I'm like, is that you or is that me?
When you step into your anointing, which is where you are, what you just said is the purpose for you, and that is giving a voice to the voiceless. These are heavy, heavy, heavy subjects. And you have to guard your heart. You personally, I'm speaking right to you. You have to guard your heart. You have to find the joy. You
Yeah.
don't let this claw its way into your being, all of us that are unloading and that you're allowing to
Oh,
unload. And I really pray for your protection, enlightenment, your joy, your peace. You have it, you just have peace in spades all over you. It's just like woo. And the fire in your belly. The
oh,
fire in your belly is just it's contagious. It's it's like being enveloped in this wonderful human being. And I'm so tickled for you. And I don't believe God could have chosen a better person. And he has. He's planned this. You're the plan. You're part of the big plan. And I just think that the podcast is going to do nothing but grow. And I think there's going to be some sideways that you go when you're searching for direction, because this is, man, I wouldn't want to talk about this all day, every day. I mean, can you see how you can just get back in the mire? And,
sure.
so part of me wanting to be lighthearted, these subjects are really icky, picky, and awful and horrible. But I don't want anybody to go down into the bottom with me because I'm not there anymore. And I
No.
want them to be lifted out of the bottom. And I know that if I were there, I would be holding your hands and I would be saying, shut this thing off because I'm just dying to pray for you. So I will pray for you from afar.
Yes. We're
And
gonna do what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to do an in-person in studio panel with you, me, and
that'd be
Sylvie.
fun.
That would be amazing. And thank you for saying these things because I feel like it's such an honor to be doing this and hearing this. And honestly, like the heaviness of stories, like everyone I talk to has come through or is coming through whatever they're talking about. And so it's always like, yes, it's heavy, right? And it's like, I hate hearing what happened to you. Like, that's just awful. But it needs to be talked about because the alternative is these things are swept under the rug and sort of normalized or just like, just don't talk about it. Whereas I think the lesson is talking about it is okay. And the right people, when you talk about it, will circle around you. And even if there's just that one woman or that one man that can believe you, you need one person to believe you. Just to because you're when you're in these dark situations, you don't know up from down. But here I am rambling again. See, I
No,
ramble.
you're not. No, you're not.
Um,
You're looking and you need validation. And that was what the Lord told me was that you needed validation tonight that you're on the right track. And
oh,
you are. One of the things that you can do, your friend group, your, uh, forgive, I have this
no,
monitor that does this.
no,
Mm, and I'm in Mexico. The your and I that's
but
boy, the enemy just jumped right in there. Your friend group, your
yeah,
friend group, your church friend group, your prayer group, your those women, they have to be your armor bearers. You have to trust them and your heart. You need to be covered in prayer. And I'm not trying to be spooky spiritual. I'm just
no,
telling
but yeah, because I'm talking about stuff that's gonna like, I feel like I'm poking the bear.
attack. You have a husband, you have a family, and you're opening doors and just
True.
use those women as your armor bearers. Find one or two that you trust
Yes.
and know that they're praying for you before you start into one of these. I mean, all the time. I will be, but
You.
you needed validation and you need to know that he is using you. You are pliable. You are doing everything that you're supposed to be doing right now and probably more.
Thank
And it's very exciting. And from this chair, from this perspective, to get to for God to put you alongside somebody at this point in my life that you get to walk beside and pray for and watch grow.
mm,
There's nothing like it. Nothing, nothing, nothing. It's the most incredible feeling on this earth. And I thank you, Jesus, for it. I thank you for this time. I praise you for this time that we've had together, Lord Jesus. I love you so much.
oh my gosh. By the way, I gotta call out. Sylvie's watching this
Hey,
when she's watching
Sylvie.
this.
Love you, Sylvie.
She's gonna be like, hey, she'll probably start crying. I just got full chills down my back. So that's like a woo. And
You just
temperature didn't change.
you
So
just
I got full chills. Ah, no.
you just let him fill you up because he is busy doing it and you are this vessel that he prepared from your mother's womb. He just like me, except that you're in a different podcasts and Substack seem to have changed our world. And
It's
I feel that there's a great deal of goodness
it's coming.
coming from both. and that he's giving warriors a platform.
Yeah.
And I, I think you're going to have some. I hope that you get to meet Joyce.
Oh,
Because
that's my goal. I've tagged her like 10 times. I'm like, I tell people, I'm like, if she walked in right now, I'd be like,
no, you just have fun with her. Just
I know,
have
I know.
fun. Just have fun.
She is just,
Raw,
love that one.
real, truthful,
Love.
straight up.
That's my kind of church right there. Is
Oh
like,
hell.
listen,
Oh yeah. Oh
there's
yeah.
nothing off limits. We're going to talk about it.
No. No. And you could talk about anything with her. She could have been somebody you could have gone and said,
Uh,
um, we're fornicating in a massage parlor. I mean, you could have told her
and
anything and
she'd be
she
like,
said, oh,
y'all stop doing that.
or, that might not be a good plan.
Yeah. Why y'all doing that?
She's the best. But back in the dark ages, because we're similar in age, right? So
Yeah.
back in the dark ages in the charismatic movement, she was a thing. But for male pastors,
Oh, they weren't having it.
well, she was a threat, boy,
And
because
she probably was like, I'm here.
ooh,
They're like, who is this?
and she never lost her authority. She never walked out of her power, ever, ever, ever. And I love her, but I love her differently from afar because I've gotten to watch her, and she's just never been, nothing's ever fluffed her skirt. I mean, she is who she is. And she speaks truth to the darkness in a
Yeah.
way that there aren't very many people. And I have some that I follow and that I like, but I'm careful with that too.
You have, and
I
that's, yeah, you have
go
to be
ahead.
careful who you follow when you're learning. And I'm like kind of a ripe canvas here for like, oh, what? Because there's not a lot. I know the basics, but I'm like, I don't want to get the wrong information, and I want to get the right vibes. There's false leaders out there and everything, right? Whatever you're into.
Yeah. And you just have to guard your heart. That's why he says, that's why that word is there. And one thing about the book that I didn't say that it was on my little list
Yeah.
was the book's not churchy and the book's not religious. And I didn't quote scripture every other breath, and I can do it with the best of them.
Yeah.
God said no, specifically no. It is to be raw and real and truthful and honest. And maybe that woman at the well who's never seen Jesus will come because you didn't throw scripture at her. And a lot of my prayer sisters would have sat me down, held my hand, prayed over me with every scripture on the planet, meaning all the good in the world. But I needed testimony. I needed a witness. I needed to know that he could hold my hand through this and that it wasn't just somebody saying, okay, Psalm 48 2, or, you know, not that that's wrong. It,
No.
for those of us in this kind of mire, we need witness. We need truth. We need Joyce in all the ways. But can you imagine where you are today? Go back 2 years, she would have been a wackadoodle.
Oh, I literally, oh
Uh,
yeah, like it's just like I'm literally everything I said I'd never be. Like, what?
yeah.
But I'm like, no, when you experience the transformation of what you feel, you can't deny that what used to seem wackadoodle is
Hey,
it's changing me.
and they don't judge. The
Yeah,
real
the
ones
real ones don't.
don't judge.
That
The fakes will, or they will, but you can weed them out real quick. You are when I text you and I thought, oh my God, I put this on her. I should have done it.
no.
You are stepping in. I mean, you have grown so much in such a short time. And your girlfriends and your prayer, they have to be excited.
They're
They have to be like,
they're I've
watch
got
her go.
friends around me that are just incredible, that are just like,
You can tell.
wow, those are the ones that like, they'll make fun of you with the best of them, but then they'll celebrate. Like they'll like be like, what? It's just like no filter, no
We
filter.
should have a potluck. We should with
I've
all
already
of
got like 10 people for you to meet, like Jade,
them.
Sylvia, Omira, Michelle, Kaylee, like all of us are the same. And yet, all of us, when I look at all of us, there's all a story where you're like, what? No, not you. And you're like, yeah,
We've
right?
all walked through the fire.
And then there's a quote about, and this reminds me of you and Sylvie, the type of woman that walks out of the fire and then walks back in with 2 buckets of water for those that are still in it. Because
Thank you.
God wanted you to reopen this. It kind of came out of you as hard as it's been, but you're walking back into the fire and you didn't have to.
But it's so much fun with him.
It feels, I got chills. Oh my God, body again. Ah,
It's so much fun with him. And it's so different and it's so free. I've never felt so free. And I know that Sylvie gets that.
yes.
And I thought when I wrote what I did yesterday about walking back into the thing, I thought she's going to be going, girl, you knew better. Why did you do that? Because, you just were borrowing trouble here. But there's so much joy in walking with him. He's been hilarious in my life. He's done some wackadoodle, crazy ass things like the Match.com thing. I, 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 I will tell you a story in private. This email that Ken sent me. He is a cowboy from Wyoming, right?
Uh-huh.
And he's 75, so he's very macho, old school, white man rule kind of guy. And I shouldn't be saying this. So y'all cut this out. I'm going to tell you a story. Cut this out. So he sends me this email because he sees my profile, and I am going back to this little town where I grew up to help with these hunting lodges, right?
Yeah.
And he says, well, I'd like for you to have dinner with me, and I will come to this little town. I'll come to Albany, and we'll meet, and you can take me to show me this hunting lodge where your friends have this hunting lodge. And then he goes on in this thing, and this is like, I'm working for Visa at this point. I have an education, and we're going to go have dinner. And all my family lives in this town. So I,
You
I don't
walk
want
in.
anybody to know. And by Sunday night, he said, I want you to marry me. I've prayed for you. I've prayed. This was good. I've prayed for you. God sent you to me. We're going to be together. You're going to be divorced in a week. And I said, bullshit, bullshit. You don't know what you're talking about, dude. And then when I went to his little ranch house where he was that next week after I divorced, I went to his little ranch house and it was anything but what I had lived. It was I had been looking at stock portfolios and what guys had, and because I wasn't going to do this again. And he didn't. He didn't have anything, pot or a window, and he was just a cowboy. And
But
um,
you just felt, I mean, the
no, I
price
was ready
put
to
on
leave. I
feeling
would because I
safe.
thought,
Oh,
no,
no,
I
you were like, oh, this,
this is at that end of that because I thought it's so unfair. My requirements for living, I want the big house again. I want
yeah.
the Escalade. I want, and this is not going to happen. And this is so unfair. And, you know, so I was about to leave on that Saturday morning after I'd gone up there, after I'd been divorced for hours. And he kissed me and he said, you're about to leave. I know you're about to leave. But he goes, I just want to tell you something. Who just kissed you? And I knew it was God. I knew it in my being that it was God that had kissed me. And he goes, I just want you to know that God's told me that you have a choice. You can either stay in the best thing that he's ever going to give you in your life, or you can go. And I sat there and I thought, hmm, um, do I trust? I haven't been walking with God in a while. I've been doing all sorts of things I shouldn't have been doing. And in that moment, I trusted him. And that guy in there took me on as a project for the first 5 years of our marriage that were horrible for him. And he just steadfast, but he's a character. You'd know he was a man of faith, but oh my God, you did the jokes he tells? Jesus, Mary and Joseph,
Yeah.
terrible. It's just, and still to this day, he is the center of attention and he is wonderful and he is my world. And I'm so thankful that God did that. But when you know his voice, and I know that you're starting
I'm
to know
starting
it,
to hear things. Yeah.
and you're gonna know because I had no doubt. I knew that's exactly what it was. I
Mhm.
knew, and who, so when I tell some of these stories, the word wackadoodle comes to mind.
No, but like you feel it. And so you're like, well,
I have to make a choice.
maybe the normal world's wackadoodle and this is just how it's supposed to be. But yeah, so in that moment it's like a life choice. Like, do I want to
Do I want to trust God with this? It doesn't look right. It doesn't
doesn't
smell right. It's off. It's different. It's not what I had planned. It's not, I haven't been walking with you, Lord. I've been in adultery. I've been doing everything I shouldn't be doing. And why would you give me this?
well,
But I know it
I
was you.
haven't earned it.
I
I've
know it was you.
earned it.
But I also knew that Ken had told me the week before that I would be divorced by Friday. And that Friday night I was at his house divorced. And I thought, oh, something's going on here.
Okay.
I got my radar's up and then the next day I just knew I had to leave. I wasn't going to start over and not there, not with that. But we did. And we built from scratch, built a business after 20 years. We're able to sell it and retire and live here on a modest retirement. But that's why we're here, is because it's so reasonable to live here.
Mhm.
And okay.
No,
I feel terrible. I feel like I'm just monopolizing.
well, you are the guest. That's
Yeah,
the
but
whole
look
point.
at the time. Look
It's
at, oh my
fine.
God.
This is okay. This is just the beginning of what will be. I know just it's going to be some steady voice on the podcast with Sylvie. Maybe this panel thing is God is knitting something together right now. I already know, and it's going to be amazing. And I'm putting all of your information in the show notes
Thank you.
where you can follow Roseanne, where you can purchase her book, which I haven't even finished reading yet, where you can connect with you on Substack. Let's see, website, Instagram, Amazon. And I would really, really love for you to come back and maybe even, I don't know, we'll have to just figure out something where you're coming
There's a
back.
there's a place on the website if
Yeah.
they know of a ministry or have a ministry and want
Okay.
to register for free books.
Oh,
They
amazing.
just need to go and sign up and say how
Okay.
many they want. We've just started approaching shelters so, a couple or three ministries, and
Okay.
all of them are hesitant. There's a real hesitant because I'm real quick to say there's no theology in the book. There's no doctrine in the book because that's not what it's about. And if you're not trained in trauma, there's a resistance to what the hell are we going to do with this book? And why would we need this book? We're not
Yeah.
seeing this in our body. You're not seeing it because you're not talking about it. You're not
It
uh,
to come to surface.
allowing women to say abused women this way with a sign so that, and they're not going to do that because they're all hiding. But
Yep.
somehow we have to, and so you and Sylvie can talk about this too. There has to be a mechanism.
Uh,
The
yeah.
survivor groups are dangerous because there's lots of hurt still, and trolls and yada yada yada
Uh-huh.
yada.
Uh-huh.
Even in Substack, you can't believe the number of men to the number of women that subscribe to me. Block, 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 because they're looking that. So I've gotten careful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So thank you for putting all that in there. My husband is coming
No.
to the garage, and I think he's going to go, "Oh my gosh, was it bad? Did
Oh
you?"
no, no, this is and it's gonna come together beautifully. We're gonna
It'll
put
be
clips
fine.
together so that people hopefully will hear something and just know that they're not alone. And again, Roseanne, thank you. I know I've made a lifelong friend and I can't wait for
I have too.
no, I just appreciate woman to woman, we're gonna do God's work here. And I don't even know what that means for me, but I know it's doing something.
And it's going to be fun.
Yes.
Thank you for having me so very much. I appreciate it. And I look forward to the next time. And I look forward to meeting Sylvie.
We're gonna meet in person. We're gonna have to make it happen.
Okay. Okay.
All right, Roseanne. Well, good
Thank
night
you.
and until next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.